Everything sounds good? Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
All right. We look good?
We have to.
Good enough. It's not just a podcast.
Right. So I am here with Paul Puey, CEO of Edge, also co-founder. You just did a phenomenal keynote. It was a keynote presentation.
talk.
We'll take it. It was a talk on how wallets are the new exchange. I'm very fortunate to have ripped him away from that session before he's had lunch to sit down and talk with us. So tell me a little bit more about Edge, because we really talked about where the industry's at a high level. We didn't talk about your product.
Yeah, in the talk I talked more about how the industry is and should be transitioning from the separation of wallets and exchanges to being more of an integrated product.
Yeah.
And we're seeing several products, including Edge, do that. I think we're at the forefront of it. So I didn't talk too much about what we're specifically doing, so I can kind of happily chat about that here, where, relative to that topic of wallets being the exchange, Edge builds what we think is this new product definition of the self-custody exchange.
Yeah.
And it's at the foundational level. It's kind of three-piece. One is key management, two is fiat on-ramps, and then three is crypto to crypto. But the one big differentiator between Edge and many other software solutions, self-custody solutions, what people traditionally would call wallets, I hate using that word now, but main difference is our key management solution. And it allows people to fully hold and control their own keys without ever having to see that key. They don't ever have to write down a private key, back it up, secure a file and whatnot, encrypt it. They just create what feels like a regular, cloud-based account, a regular mobile app account, username, password, and a PIN that automatically encrypts their keys on their device. It synchronizes it between maybe, say, their iPad and their Android phone. And at the touch of a button, even automatically gives it two-factor protection. And users can even set up password recovery, which is a full suite of what you'd be used to in a regular account. That's the foundation of Edge, so much so that that key management security platform is actually used by other apps that are not Edge. Then, of course, on top of that, we build our own apps. We can say we are kind of the first app on our platform, and that app is the self-custody exchange, where people can buy, sell, and trade globally around the world, from different payment mechanisms, different fiat currencies, to and from crypto, Bitcoin, and then also trade crypto to crypto inside of Edge.
So, and you kind of touched on some of the hesitations the industry has had on this market and some of the challenges that you face, but I really view your product or your company as something that's trying to alleviate some of the user experience pains that people have surrounding cryptocurrencies.
Right.
Is that a fair analysis?
You could see it definitely from the key management point of view. We are definitely we're trying to alleviate those pains.
Yeah.
Because without alleviating those pains, people end up settling for custodial solutions. So admittedly, it's still not identical to a custodial solution. Edge doesn't feel 100% the same. You can't recover your password by just having an email sent to you and whatnot. But it gets us there. You could say 90% there.
Yeah.
And the goal is get close enough where people feel comfortable with it and it's forgiving enough that even the total new user, non-technophile, can use it and not have to go and trust an exchange.
What are the current barriers that you feel the non-technically savvy person is experiencing right now with your product today? Like what needs to be tweaked for them to jump on board? Yeah,
there's definitely still some pieces that are a bit more challenging with a self-custody exchange versus your Coinbase and Krakens of the world. Some of those challenges are the actual sending to and from the exchange. So those are actual on-chain transactions. On-chain transactions, as we know, aren't 100% reliable, and that fees might end up varying, or a user might not pay enough fees. And that's something we try to take the absolute best guess for them. But it's a balance between overpaying, but your funds are going to go through,
right,
or making it inexpensive for the user, but then there's the chance that the transaction doesn't go through. So there's that piece of friction that a user might hit when they try to do a trade and try to buy. As well, the extra piece of friction is the fact that we are connecting to multiple different exchange providers. Each one of them has a different user experience for what they require from the user. Like the UX to KYC with one service is different from the UX to KYC with another. And so that makes for some inconsistencies in the experience inside of Edge. Now, usually once you get past that part, then the buy and sell is straightforward. But there is a bit of that kind of user experience inconsistency. It's like, oh, I'm doing kind of edge related stuff. Now I'm integrating with this exchange. I have to KYC. It might feel very different and look a little bit different, especially the way we integrate it. So you can kind of say that our experience, early Amazon, like all they did was sell books. But as soon as they started to incorporate other buyers and sellers, they became a marketplace really with other third parties doing the actual provision of the product, which is kind of what Edge is doing. The user experience can kind of take a bit of a dip until you kind of iron out the wrinkles. And so that's kind of what happened with Amazon. You notice, like, heck, it's not an Amazon buyer. It's not officially Amazon. And so, well, they might have a different return policy and only accept certain payment methods, blah, blah, blah.
Shipping, yeah.
And shipping processes are all a little bit different. It's not nice and standardized across the board. But in the end, you start getting, Amazon themselves can start not enforcing, but motivating certain standards, such as Amazon Prime. It's like, hey, if you want to get featured, you're going to have to provide the Prime level caliber services. So it's not unlike what we've got at Edge, where each of the providers are notably a bit different, but as we grow over time, we could start creating better standards across the partners so that users have a more seamless experience. Yeah. But that's definitely one of the frictions right now in using I think this is true of all of the self-custody wallets that give you exchange functionality.
Right. And who do you feel like you market to right now the most? Like, what's your ideal user?
Got it. So the ideal user, definitely a new user, pretty much any new user to crypto, for sure. And then who we market to is not necessarily that new user. We market to the people that onboard the new users. So you can think of that meetup organizer, that YouTube influencer that's got their, crypto 101 how-to guide and whatnot. We market to them because many of them realize how challenging it is to teach people all the different steps to acquire and then secure crypto.
Yeah.
And to build a product that for them is like, oh my God, it's a one-stop shop, like all in one, where they get to advocate still their true ideals of own your keys, own your funds, while still giving people the ability to buy, sell, and trade them. So I would say definitely more of that crypto influencer.
Yeah. We
give them the product for that new user, but we don't necessarily market directly to that new user because there's potentially billions of those people.
It's the one-to-many, right?
It's the one-to-many. It's really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one-to-tough. So we want to communicate with the people that are onboarding other people.
That's interesting. And so with this industry, as it's young, it's tech, and this is, I think, across the board, whether it was like IoT or even augmented reality today, there's a lot of people that are involved in the space that have less than legitimate projects.
Oh, jeez.
And when you talk to the outer IT, like if you go to just a blanket IT conference, they're like, oh, blockchain, there's a lot of scammers. How do you differentiate yourself from your marketing standpoint? Because that's a struggle a lot of these blockchain startups are having right now.
So number one, I don't say the word blockchain.
Good.
Simple as that. I think it's been one of the more bastardized words in any industry as a whole. So, and I'm not a big believer in blockchain for many things. For the most part, I think its biggest use case is money and financial services on top of that money.
Yeah.
Anything outside of that is let's wait and see a little bit. I think probably the few cases where I think I was proven wrong on that with respect to social media are things like Steemit.
Okay.
But even there, I think it's still money because it's the content monetization piece of social media. It wasn't that you just put your Twitter thing on the blockchain. It's how do you monetize the content that people were already creating and wanting to create in a way that's not advertising driven. And that's where the blockchain came in. And it's cryptocurrency that came in, not blockchain as a whole. So how do we differentiate ourselves? Well, number one, we don't really go to IT conferences. We go to crypto and financial conferences. I did go to one IT conference, QCon in New York.
Okay.
I was invited there to speak on behalf of crypto as a whole.
Yeah.
And so we
you
talked about
the whole community.
It was me and several other people. Right. But it was as crypto, not from the viewpoint of IT and databases and blockchain. We talked about crypto, and there were about 5 of us from the crypto space that came in and gave talks there, and all of us talked about crypto as a whole, not blockchain technology and how it applies to IT infrastructure. It's cryptocurrency.
Well, it's fascinating because this is a unique conference, and over that, it's more of a blockchain, not Bitcoin conference. Right?
I come to this conference to try to convert people.
Right.
That's actually the reason why. Because otherwise, I'm like, oh God, it's full of blockchain, not Bitcoin. And so,
it is, yeah.
And I think last year I think I successfully converted a couple of people. Because it really made them go, yeah, actually, why would we use blockchain for this?
Well,
and so.
And my biggest thing is like the biggest use case that's untapped right now is the lottery, like lottery kind of thing. So like
that's a fairly simple smart contract too.
Right.
I've been actually wanting to see someone build a really simple, open, globally accessible lottery.
Right.
And I think it might have been done. It just didn't have the right marketing and behind
I've
the
seen
right
a
team.
couple versions of it, but they've all been missing like a component of it. Usually they're built by like 2 20-year-olds, and that's
like a metallic. They're too old already. They're over the hill.
Right, exactly. But they don't have any of the resources to even get funding.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
They don't know what
to
they're
get
doing.
exposure. That's the tough thing.
Yeah.
These small little DApp projects just don't really have any exposure. Instead, the big DApp projects that are garbage come from a fairly wealthy, IT infrastructure folks that say, oh, we can leverage blockchain. Mm-hmm. And so they're the ones that take up a lot of the media hype cycle. But you're right, like fairly simple, and that's a financial app, right? Yeah. Lotteries, it takes in money and it redistributes money.
Right.
It's a fairly simple app.
Somebody takes a transaction fee and you're done, right?
Exactly, yeah. You take a little cut and then you're done. It's perfect.
If there was one other use case that really could use this kind of technology that really isn't being tapped into right now, what would you say it is?
I wouldn't say it's a grand different use case than what's being tapped into, but I think it's more aspects of financial services. So we're seeing, let me think, what are we seeing already today? Obviously we're seeing asset-backed loans, right? That's coming into play. As we potentially tokenize assets that are off blockchain, then we can asset-backed loans for assets that are not actually on the blockchain. Those are less interesting because of the huge trust required there, but it's still interesting from the viewpoint of the asset might be trusted, but the loan doesn't have to be. Like the mechanism of taking out the loan doesn't require a trusted loan provider. Yeah. Right. Even though with a token is asset backed by an asset in the real world, which does require trust. So we're already seeing asset backed loans. We're seeing interest bearing accounts through the fact that there's asset backed loans on the back end. We are starting to see leverage trading, which is another financial service in and of itself. What else are we seeing? I fail to think of the other different things that we're seeing, but I know there's other financial services that we're starting to see on top, and that's what I would like to see more of. Yeah. What do we normally go to our traditional services, traditional financial service companies for? Like, what are the services that we're asking for, and then how can we replicate that inside of crypto on a smart contract and eliminate that third party? What's out there? I haven't had any directly on my mind. Like, oh, this is what we need to be using it for. I think most of it has been at least started, not hit mass market, not have the liquidity necessary for it to hit mass market, but its use cases I think are mostly thought of. But almost certainly, there's a dozen more that I haven't thought of yet. Oh, for sure. Like I said, it's just interesting to see what's like on top of somebody's head, because I would have judged you pretty hard if you're like, oh, healthcare. I'm like, nope. No, not necessarily. That won't. My wife's in healthcare, and she's a dentist, and I remember when Dentacoin or whatnot had their big ICO. I'm like, oh, babe, you're doing the wrong thing. We should just ICO some random shit thing that been working on. But healthcare. Not necessarily. I think there is the one connection with blockchain and 100 other industries that I'll say, and the connection is very indirect. It's that crypto has motivated, and this is probably more relevant to your podcast, has motivated a very different security model. Sure. Well, that we're now more deployed into the masses that other companies that have nothing to do with crypto can now utilize. But my criticism of that is based on like HIPAA regulation, and then based on like GDPR, which is kind of being adopted in the United States in various forms. There's a big overarching theme of the right to be forgotten, right? Mm-hmm. And that is not what a blockchain is, right? It's I didn't say using a blockchain. I'm talking about the security mechanisms that are built for cryptocurrency. So key management. Fair. So key management was way further along than it was 10 years ago. But that's more just general use than just healthcare. Exactly. Right? That's why I said it's very indirect. All right, I misunderstood. It's very indirect. Yes. That's what I'm actually quite passionate about. It's something that we're doing at Edge. So our key management that we have is an SDK, but it doesn't have, and the SDK can transact crypto. So you can build your own app that can send and receive crypto, has wallet functionality using our SDK. But that SDK that secures keys, those keys don't have to be keys for crypto. They can be keys to do digital signatures for identity. They can be, and that has nothing to do with blockchain. It doesn't have to be blockchain. It can just simply be public-private key cryptography. Right. They can be keys that just encrypt data. They don't even have to be keys. They can be the data itself that can be stored inside of Edge. So What we built with the SDK is actually a single sign-on platform across any app that uses our SDK, so that with your one Edge account, you can have encrypted data across multiple different apps. And they're all siloed. So I log into my new future QuickBooks. Instead of it being QuickBooks Online, where Intuit sees all of my personal financial information or business financial information, it's a single sign-on where the QuickBooks runs in my computer or in the browser, and it encrypts all that data and then backs it up and then synchronizes it between the different browsers, where only I see that information. And that can be true for your Evernote-like app, your personal private note-taking app. It can be true for your photo storage app. Like I just dump photos into my computer. Well, they're encrypted, and I can share an encrypted version with someone else that can then decrypt it. These types of applications are Word or Excel type applications where we're the ones creating the content and we're the ones consuming the content, where it's not social media where I intend to share it across a bunch of people. All of those should leverage the security model that crypto helped build, which is client-side encrypted data. Right. And we've had encryption for decades, but we didn't have good key management, so encryption was relegated to the IT managers.
Sure.
Now we've got much better improved key management, and I foresee applications starting to delve into the realm of client-side encryption, especially after what you just mentioned, how GDPR is becoming so much more important.
You need to own your own stuff.
You gotta let your users own their own stuff. That's really hard to do as an app developer unless you provide client-side encryption. Otherwise, it's just a promise.
Right.
It's just a promise. But if you provide client-side encryption, the user really does own their own stuff.
I think that's the way things are going, though. I think that's
exactly.
The future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so our goal is let's go get our 100 million crypto users, in Edge, and then now we've got 100 million of these accounts that are all client-side encrypted, and now push traditional applications. Say, hey, incorporate this SDK. Here's 100 million users that can sign into your app at the touch of a button, and automatically have that encrypted repository of data that they create in your app, and you become 100% compliant, don't have any of the security issues of holding their sensitive data.
Right.
That's what we'd be excited to do. But we start with crypto because that's what we're excited about first and foremost.
Right.
And it's the industry that needs this security model first before they.
I agree. I would agree with that.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yep.
So, like I said, I appreciate you coming over here, taking some time out of your conference to sit down with me. Is there any ask you might have for anyone listening to this?
Definitely, if you haven't already tried Edge, give us a shot. Yeah. Right. Just Edge.app.
I'll make sure that's all on the link. And
on the show notes.
Put it all over
right?
here. Yeah. We'll put graphics out.
So definitely give it
from the website.
Yeah. So check it out. Edge.app. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter. Edge Wallet on Twitter.
Yeah. Your Twitter is Pollinator.
My Twitter is Pollinator.
So that's a good name. I saw that.
Old nickname from high school, from lacrosse days, and and yeah, definitely send us any feedback you might have. So we know that there's many ways to improve, but we'd like to improve in the ways that people care about. Yeah. So let us know what you think.
Smartest man here.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Take care, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.